The school parking lot was already buzzing with students when the black twins stepped out of their mother's car that morning. It was their first day at a new high school, and even though they had moved several times before, this one felt different. The buildings were larger, the students louder, and the air filled with a kind of energy that made their hearts beat faster. The twins, a boy and a girl, were both 17. They looked almost identical, with the same sharp brown eyes and calm expressions. The boy carried his backpack over one shoulder, while his sister held hers neatly in front of her. Their mother wished them good luck and reminded them to stay kind no matter what. She smiled proudly before driving away. They stood there for a moment, watching groups of students greet each other with hugs and laughter. Most of the faces around them were unfamiliar, and nearly all of them looked different from theirs. They felt the usual mix of nerves and hope that came with being the new kids. The boy looked at his sister and whispered, "We've got this." She nodded with a small smile, though her eyes showed a trace of worry. Inside the school, the halls were noisy and crowded. Posters for sports teams and school events covered the walls. The twins tried to find their way to the main office to pick up their class schedules. A few students glanced their way, some whispering, others just staring a little longer than necessary. It wasn't hostile, but it was enough to remind them they were outsiders. When they reached the office, a friendly woman behind the desk greeted them warmly and handed them their schedules. "Welcome to Ridgeview High," she said cheerfully. "I'm sure you'll fit right in." They thanked her politely and stepped back into the hallway. The boy had math first period while his sister had English. They decided to meet again at lunch. Before parting, she told him softly, "Just keep your cool. You know how people can be." He nodded. He knew exactly what she meant. In class, the boy found a seat near the back. A few students introduced themselves, but most ignored him. The teacher, an older man with kind eyes, asked him to stand and introduce himself to the class. He did so quietly, saying his name and that his family had just moved from another city. A few polite claps followed, but in the back corner, a tall blond boy smirked and whispered something to his friends. They laughed under their breath. The new student noticed, but he let it slide. He had promised himself not to react. At lunch, the twins sat together at a corner table in the cafeteria. They opened their lunches quietly and talked about their morning classes. The boy had already noticed the group of students who seemed to enjoy making fun of others. The girl had seen it too. They didn't want trouble. They just wanted to finish the year peacefully. A few minutes later, the same tall boy from math class walked past their table with two of his friends. He glanced at the twins, then whispered something to the others, who laughed. One of them said loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, "Didn't know we had new athletes on the team." The tone made it clear it wasn't a compliment. The twins looked at each other, then went back to eating. Their calm reaction seemed to bother the bullies even more. They expected anger or embarrassment, but instead got silence. The girl leaned closer to her brother and said quietly, "Ignore them. They'll get bored." He nodded, though his jaw tightened slightly. That afternoon, after classes ended, the twins walked together toward the parking lot. The same boys were leaning against a car, laughing and joking. When the twins passed by, one of them called out, "Hey, new kids, you lost or something?" The boy stopped, looked at them calmly, then kept walking. His sister followed, whispering, "Don't, they're not worth it." At home, they didn't tell their mother what had happened. They didn't want her to worry. Instead, they changed clothes and went straight to their father's small martial arts studio behind the house. Their father, a quiet man with a strong build and calm presence, greeted them with a nod. "How was school?" he asked as he tightened his black belt. The boy smiled slightly and said, "It was fine. Just getting used to it." Their father didn't press for details. He simply handed them their training gear. "Good. Now let's work on your balance drills." For the next 2 hours, the twins practiced kicks, strikes, and blocks in perfect rhythm. They had been training in martial arts since they were 6 years old. Their father had taught them everything: discipline, patience, and most importantly, control. He often reminded them that fighting was never about showing power. It was about knowing when not to use it. After training, as they sat catching their breath, their father said quietly, "You'll face people who want to test you. The real fight is not with them, it's with yourself." They both nodded, understanding what he meant. The next few days at school went much the same. The twins focused on their studies and ignored the snide remarks or the laughter that sometimes followed them in the halls. But rumors began to spread that they were too quiet, or thought they were better than everyone. The bullies seemed to feed off the attention they got from others. One morning, as the boy was getting books from his locker, someone bumped into him hard from behind. His books fell to the floor. When he turned, he saw the same group of boys standing there pretending it was an accident. "Oops," one of them said with a grin. The boy crouched down to pick up his books without saying a word. His sister appeared from around the corner and helped him. She gave the bullies a cold look but said nothing. The boys laughed as they walked away. One of them said under his breath, "Didn't think they'd be so soft." That afternoon during gym class, things escalated a little more. The coach announced a dodgeball game. The twins ended up on the same team, while the bullies were on the opposite side. It started friendly enough, but soon the throws aimed at the twins became harder and more aggressive. The boy caught one of the fast throws cleanly, surprising everyone. The room went quiet for a second before the coach blew the whistle. When class ended, the coach pulled the boy aside. "You've got great reflexes," he said. "Ever play sports?" The boy smiled modestly. "Just a little training at home," he replied. As they walked home later, the girl said, "They're not going to stop, you know." Her brother sighed. "I know, but as long as we stay calm, they can't win." She smiled faintly. "You sound like Dad." Over the next week, the small taunts continued. Someone put gum on the boy's chair. Someone else drew something on his locker. But he never reacted. The twins had learned that silence sometimes spoke louder than words. Their calmness started to confuse their bullies. One afternoon, while the twins were eating lunch, a girl from their science class came up and sat with them. "You guys don't talk much, huh?" she said with a friendly smile. "Don't mind those idiots. They do that to everyone." The girl's kindness surprised them. She talked about how the school could be rough at first, but said most students were actually decent once you got to know them. For the first time, the twins felt a bit of warmth in that cold environment. By the end of the week, they had a few more friendly faces greeting them in the hallways. Still, the bullies didn't stop. Their pride was hurt by how the twins refused to react. The tall blonde boy, Ethan, seemed especially irritated. He had always been the center of attention, used to people fearing or admiring him. But these two newcomers didn't seem impressed. That Friday, as the last bell rang, Ethan and his friends spotted the twins leaving through the back exit near the gym. He smirked and whispered something to his group. They followed. Outside, the twins walked quietly toward the parking lot when they heard footsteps behind them. They turned and saw Ethan standing there, a fake smile on his face. "Hey," he said, pretending to be friendly. "We were just wondering if you wanted to hang out sometime. Maybe show us some of those moves you used in gym." The boy frowned slightly. "What moves?" he asked. Ethan laughed. "Don't play dumb. You caught that ball like a pro." "What are you, some kind of ninja?" His friends laughed behind him. The twins didn't reply. The girl simply said, "We're going home." They turned to leave, but Ethan's tone changed. "You think you're better than us, huh?" he said, stepping closer. "You don't talk to anyone. You act all calm like you're too good for this place." The boy looked at him steadily. "We just came here to study." "That's all," Ethan sneered. "We'll see about that." Before anything else could happen, a teacher came out of the building and called Ethan's name sharply. He froze, then quickly backed away, pretending nothing was wrong. The twins walked off quietly. That night at dinner, their mother asked how their week had been. The twins shared the good parts, the friendly girl at lunch, the nice teachers, but left out the bad ones. Afterward, they went out to the studio again. Their father watched as they practiced in silence, each movement sharp and focused. He could tell something was bothering them. "Rough week?" he asked. The boy paused and nodded slowly. "A little. But we're handling it," their father smiled. "Good, remember, storms don't last. Keep your balance. Keep your peace." They nodded, repeating the words quietly to themselves. As the night air cooled and they packed up their gear, the twins looked at each other and smiled. They didn't know what the next week would bring, but one thing was certain: they wouldn't be easy targets. Because under their calm and quiet surface lay years of strength, discipline, and training that no one at that school could ever guess. The next week started with a chill in the air and a little fog over the school field. The twins arrived early, walking side by side as usual, their steps quiet but sure. They had grown used to the whispers and the stares. It still hurt sometimes, but they had learned not to let it show. As they walked down the hallway, they could already hear laughter echoing from a group near the lockers. The tall blonde boy and his friends were there again, laughing about something. The twins tried to pass quietly, hoping to avoid attention, but one of the boys said loud enough for them to hear, "Here come the quiet twins again. Must be too good to talk to anyone." The boy didn't even glance in their direction. His sister gave him a small look that said, "Keep walking." They moved past, pretending not to notice, though deep inside, both of them were tired of the constant remarks. In class, things weren't much better. Some students were friendly, others distant, and a few just liked to stare. During science lab, the teacher paired the boy with one of Ethan's friends. The friend barely spoke and rolled his eyes when the boy tried to discuss the experiment. He ended up doing the project alone. When he turned in the work, the teacher smiled and said, "Good job." But the praise only seemed to make the other student more annoyed. At lunch, the twins sat together as always. The same group of boys sat across the room, talking loudly and looking in their direction every now and then. The girl who had been nice to them before joined them again. "Ignore those guys," she said softly. "They're just trying to get a reaction." The girl nodded. "That's what they want," she said. "If you don't react, you win." The friendly girl smiled. "You two are way calmer than I'd be. I'd have thrown my food at them by now." The twins laughed quietly. For a moment it felt like a normal lunch, but it didn't last. Later that day, when they returned to their lockers, they found someone had stuck paper notes all over them. Some had childish drawings, others had rude comments scribbled on them. The hallway filled with laughter from nearby students who had stopped to watch. The twins stood there silent, reading the words. Then the boy calmly peeled one note off, folded it, and threw it into the trash. His sister followed, removing the rest without a word. They didn't shout or complain. They just cleaned the mess and walked away. But as they turned the corner, Ethan's voice rang out. "Guess they don't have much to say after all." His friends laughed again. The girl clenched her fist for a second before her brother quietly whispered, "Let it go." That evening, their mother noticed they seemed quieter than usual during dinner. "Everything okay at school?" she asked. "Yeah," the boy said softly. "Just the usual first-week stuff." Their father looked up from his plate, studying their faces. "You two training after dinner?" They nodded. He smiled faintly. "Good. Training clears the mind." Later, under the dim lights of the small studio behind their house, the twins practiced silently. Their movements were sharp and precise. Every punch, every kick landed with power but control. Their father watched from the side, arms crossed. "Remember," he said, "it's not about strength. It's about peace." They nodded. But as they practiced, the boy's strikes became faster, harder. His sister noticed and said softly, "You're angry." He stopped, took a deep breath, and exhaled slowly. "I'm fine." She looked at him for a moment and said, "They want you to lose control. That's their power." "Don't give it to them." He gave a small smile. "I won't." The next day at school, the bullies decided to take things further. During gym class, the coach set up a basketball game. The twins were placed on the same team, while Ethan and his friends were on the other. From the start, it was clear they weren't playing fair. Every time the boy tried to move with the ball, someone bumped into him on purpose. Every time his sister tried to shoot, they'd shout or block her harshly. At one point, the boy was running down the court when Ethan stuck out his foot slightly. The boy stumbled but didn't fall. The coach didn't see it. Laughter erupted from Ethan's friends. The boy stood tall, wiped his hands, and kept playing. Near the end of the game, the girl had the ball. She was quick, focused, and silent. Ethan moved to block her, but she twisted gracefully, dodging him with ease, and scored. The coach blew the whistle and praised her agility. For the first time, the gym was quiet. The twins had just proven their skill without saying a single word. When class ended, Ethan's smirk had faded a little. He walked past them and muttered, "You think you're clever, huh?" The boy said nothing. The girl looked him in the eye calmly and replied, "We just played the game." The tension in that short moment said everything. By the time lunch rolled around, the entire school seemed to be talking about how the new twins had outplayed the popular seniors in gym. Some admired them, others sided with Ethan. But one thing was clear: people were starting to notice them. That afternoon, the twins sat under a tree outside, trying to enjoy some quiet. The air was warm and a soft wind rustled through the leaves. The girl took out her notebook and began sketching while her brother leaned against the trunk thinking. He broke the silence first. "They're not going to stop. You know that, I know," she said. "But maybe if we keep ignoring them, they'll move on." He shook his head. "They don't want to leave us alone. They want to make a show." She looked up at him. "Then we show them who we are, but not by fighting." He smiled faintly. "You sound like Dad again." She laughed softly. "He's usually right." Just then the bell rang and they packed their things. As they stood up, they noticed Ethan watching them from across the courtyard. He didn't say a word, but the look in his eyes was cold. It was clear he wasn't done with them yet. That evening at home, the twins told their father about the basketball game and how Ethan kept pushing them. He listened quietly, then said, "You handled it well. Remember, bullies feed on reaction. When you stay calm, you starve them." "But what if they don't stop?" the boy asked. Their father looked him in the eye. "Then you protect yourself, but never be the first to strike. True strength is patience." The next few days passed with a strange tension in the air. The bullies didn't say much, but their looks and whispers followed the twins everywhere. Some students started avoiding the twins, afraid of getting involved. Others admired their calmness. One afternoon, the twins were in the library finishing homework when they heard laughter outside. They ignored it until they heard their names. The boy glanced through the window and saw Ethan holding a basketball, talking loudly to his friends. He caught a few words. "Let's see if they're still quiet after this." The twins exchanged a glance. They didn't know what he meant, but they stayed calm. When the final bell rang, they walked out together. The air outside was cool and smelled of rain. As they approached the gate, Ethan and his friends appeared again. This time they blocked the path. "Well, well," Ethan said, his tone casual but sharp. "You two think you're something special, huh? Beating us in gym doesn't make you tough." The boy sighed. "We didn't beat anyone. It was just a game." Ethan stepped closer. "You really don't get it, do you? This is my school. You don't just come here and act like you're better than everyone." The girl crossed her arms. "We never said that." "Doesn't matter," Ethan said. "You act like it. Always walking around quiet like you own the place." Before the boy could reply, a teacher's voice called out from behind them. "Everything okay here?" Ethan quickly smiled and said, "Yeah, just talking." The teacher nodded and walked away, unaware of the tension. The twins didn't say another word. They simply turned and walked off. Ethan's friends whispered behind him, "Man, they don't even talk back. Weird." He watched them leave, his jaw tight. "Don't worry," he muttered. "We'll make them talk soon enough." At home that night, the twins went through their usual routine. Dinner, homework, then training. But this time, their movements were quieter, more serious. Their father noticed. "What's on your minds?" he asked. The boy hesitated before saying, "It's getting worse. They're not just joking anymore." Their father set down his cup of tea and said gently, "Then it's time to remember who you are. You are strong. But strength isn't about fists. It's about knowing your worth. No one can take that from you." The twins looked at each other, nodding slowly. They knew he was right. Later that night, after training, they sat outside under the stars. The air was still and the neighborhood was quiet. The girl leaned back on her hands and said, "Do you ever wish we could just be normal? Go to school without having to deal with this?" Her brother smiled softly. "Normal is boring. Besides, we were trained for challenges, right?" She laughed quietly. "Yeah, but I'd still take a boring week for once." He looked up at the stars and said, "Maybe things will change soon." Neither of them knew how true that would be, because the next week everything was about to shift in a way no one at that school could have imagined. The next week began quietly. The air was cool, and the sky stayed gray for most of the morning. The twins walked to school side by side, neither saying much. The tension around them hadn't gone away, but they had learned to move through it with calm. Still, something felt different that day, like a storm waiting to happen. When they reached the main hall, they could hear whispers already. Some students looked at them and then quickly turned away. The boy noticed a few people smiling in that way that wasn't friendly. The girl caught his glance and said softly, "Something's—" He nodded but didn't reply. They went to their lockers as usual, took out their books and walked to their classes. During the morning, things seemed normal. Teachers taught lessons, students passed notes, and the usual chatter filled the rooms. But every time the twins walked into a hallway, they could feel the stares. By lunchtime, it became clear what had happened. Someone had posted edited pictures of them on a student group chat, making jokes and spreading lies. The rumors moved faster than they could keep up. When they walked into the cafeteria, conversation stopped for a few seconds, then started again with laughter in different corners. The twins sat quietly at their usual table. The friendly girl came over again, her face filled with concern.
"Hey, I'm so sorry," she said softly.
People can be so mean sometimes. Don't let it get to you, the girl nodded politely. We're fine, she said, but her brother could feel his stomach tighten. He wasn't angry, not yet, just tired. Tired of pretending it didn't bother him. Tired of having to stay calm every single time someone tried to push them. Across the room, Ethan sat with his group, laughing louder than usual. Every now and then, he would glance in their direction. One of his friends said something that made the whole table laugh again. The boy took a slow breath and looked at his sister. Ignore them, she said under her breath. They're just trying to get a rise out of us. I know, he replied, forcing a small smile. They'll get bored soon. But deep down, he wasn't so sure anymore. After lunch, the day dragged on. The whispers, the looks, the laughter. It all followed them like a shadow. When the final bell rang, the boy was more than ready to go home. He walked out of his last class and waited near the gate for his sister. She came out a minute later, her face calm but her eyes weary. Let's just go, she said softly. But as they turned toward the parking lot, they saw Ethan and his friends waiting near the gym doors. The same smirks, the same swagger. One of them called out, "Hey, quiet boy! You still think you're better than us?" The twins kept walking. The boy didn't even glance their way. But then Ethan shouted again, this time louder, and everyone nearby stopped to watch. What's wrong? You too scared to face us? The boy stopped walking. For a moment he stood completely still. His sister touched his arm and whispered, Don't. He wants this. He nodded slowly but didn't move yet. A small crowd was starting to gather. Students with their phones out expecting something to happen. Ethan smiled, sensing the attention. How about we settle this after school? He said, just a friendly match. No teachers. Just us. The boy turned to look at him calmly. We're not interested, Ethan shrugged. Scared then, figures, the crowd murmured. The girl's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. They started to walk away again, but the laughter behind them was louder now. Didn't think the strong twins were that weak. One of Ethan's friends shouted. The boy paused again. He looked at his sister, who met his eyes. There was a moment of silence between them, an understanding that didn't need words. Finally, he said quietly, Fine, after school, but no one gets hurt. Ethan grinned, thinking he had already won. Behind the gym, he said. 4 o'clock. Don't be late. The twins walked off without another word. When they got home, their mother was still at work. Their father was in the studio cleaning the mats. He looked up when they came in. You're home early, he said. The boy hesitated. There's something we need to tell you. They told him everything, how the bullying had gotten worse, how the rumors were spreading, and how Ethan had challenged them to a fight. Their father listened silently, his face unreadable. When they finished, there was a long pause. Finally, he said quietly, Did you agree? The boy nodded. I didn't want to, but... Their father raised a hand gently. You shouldn't fight to prove something. But if they won't stop and you can't walk away, then protect yourself. Never strike first. Control every move. You understand? They both nodded. He looked at them for a long moment. Remember who you are. You are not victims. You are not weak. You are disciplined. That's your strength. That evening, they trained silently. Their father didn't say much, just corrected their stances, adjusted their breathing, and watched. Every movement they made was measured and calm. There was no anger, only focus. As the sun went down, their mother came home. They didn't tell her about the fight. They didn't want her to worry. That night, the boy lay awake for a long time, staring at the ceiling. His mind replayed the voices, the laughter, the challenge. He didn't want to hurt anyone. He just wanted peace. But deep down, he knew peace sometimes needed strength to protect it. The next day came faster than he expected. The morning felt strangely quiet. At school, everyone seemed to know about the fight. Whispers filled every hallway. Students were already making bets, sharing messages, waiting for the moment. The twins went through their classes as usual, pretending not to notice. But when the final bell rang, they both knew what was coming. They packed their things slowly and walked toward the back of the school. Behind the gym, a large group had already gathered. Dozens of students stood in a wide circle, phones out, waiting. Ethan was there with his friends, laughing, stretching his arms like an athlete about to perform. When he saw the twins, he smirked. "You actually showed up," he said. The boy set down his backpack. "We said we would." Ethan cracked his knuckles. "Don't worry, I'll go easy on you." The girl stepped forward slightly. "We don't want trouble," she said. Ethan grinned. "Then don't start it." The boy took a step forward. His posture was calm, his eyes steady. He didn't raise his fists or take a fighting stance. He just stood there, relaxed. Ethan swung first. It was a fast punch aimed straight at the boy's face. But before it landed, the boy moved. Just a small step to the side, smooth and controlled. The punch missed completely. A few students gasped. Ethan tried again, faster this time. The boy ducked, letting the punch pass over his shoulder. He still didn't strike back. He only dodged, calm as water. The crowd started whispering. Ethan's grin faded. He swung again, harder, angrier. The boy blocked it gently, catching Ethan's wrist midair and twisting it, not hard, just enough to stop him. Ethan winced, losing balance. In one smooth motion, the boy stepped aside and let him stumble forward, landing on one knee. The crowd fell silent. Ethan stood up, face red, eyes furious. "Lucky move," he said through clenched teeth. He lunged again, but this time, the boy sidestepped and tapped his shoulder with open hands, using his own momentum to spin him around and send him off balance again. It wasn't violent, it was graceful. The girl stepped closer when one of Ethan's friends tried to interfere. She didn't say a word. She raised her hand calmly and said, "Stop." The way she stood, feet firm, eyes sharp, made the boy freeze where he was. Something in her confidence told him she wasn't someone to mess with. When Ethan finally stood again, breathing hard, the boy looked at him calmly. "We don't want to fight you," he said softly. "This isn't strength. It's just noise." Ethan stood there panting, realizing how easily he had been outmatched without the twins even striking once. Around them, the crowd was whispering in disbelief. Phones were recording, but the twins didn't seem to care. They picked up their bags and started to walk away. No one said a word. Even Ethan's friends stayed quiet. As they left the circle, the girl whispered to her brother, "Dad would be proud." He nodded, still calm, though his heart was racing. "We didn't fight. We just defended." The sun was setting as they walked home together. The orange light fell over the school walls, painting everything soft and warm. For the first time in weeks, they felt a strange kind of peace. That night, they didn't train. They didn't even talk much. They just sat with their father in the living room, watching TV quietly. Their mother asked how their day went. The girl smiled faintly and said, "It was fine." Their father looked at them both, reading the truth in their eyes. He didn't ask questions. He just said, "Good." Sometimes doing nothing is the strongest move you can make. They smiled, understanding exactly what he meant. The next morning, when they walked into school, everything felt different. People looked at them, not with mockery, but with curiosity. The whispers were softer now. The videos from the day before had already spread across the campus. Everyone had seen how calmly the twins had handled themselves, how they never hit back, how they controlled the situation without hurting anyone. Even Ethan didn't show up that morning. For the first time, the halls felt quiet, peaceful. But the twins knew it wasn't over yet. Something told them this calm wouldn't last long. The next morning, the twins walked to school feeling a strange mixture of relief and anticipation. After the confrontation behind the gym, things had shifted slightly. For the first time since arriving, the students weren't openly mocking them. There were whispers, yes, and some curious glances, but nothing threatening. It felt like the eye of a storm, calm but with tension still lingering around the edges. As they approached the main hall, a few students stepped aside to let them pass. The friendly girl from science class waved from her locker. "Morning," she said with a small smile. "I heard what happened yesterday. That was impressive." The girl nodded politely. "Thanks." It wasn't about showing off. Some of the other students glanced at them with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. The videos from the fight had circulated quickly. By lunchtime, Nearly every student at Ridgeview High had seen the twins' calm and controlled handling of Ethan and his friends. There were comments like, "How did they do that without hitting anyone?" And "They didn't even look angry." The twins were becoming something of a quiet legend, though they had no idea about it yet. Despite the attention, they continued their usual routine. They kept their heads down in class, completed assignments on time, and stayed polite to everyone. But it was clear things were changing. The bullies' confidence had taken a hit. They no longer swaggered through the halls with the same arrogance. Ethan, who had always acted untouchable, seemed a little more cautious, keeping his distance for the most part. During lunch, the twins sat under their usual tree outside, away from the main crowd. The friendly girl joined them again. "So," she said softly, "how are you feeling after all that?" The boy looked up at the sky. "Relieved," he admitted. "But it's not over yet. I can feel it." "Yeah," his sister added. "People will still try to get reactions. We just have to stay the same." The girl nodded. "You two have that calm thing going on? It's like nothing can shake you." The boy smiled faintly. "We've trained for it. Control is everything." After lunch, the twins returned to class. The day passed without incident, though whispers followed them quietly. By the end of the school day, however, they noticed a few teachers approaching them, which was unusual. The principal, a tall woman with kind eyes, asked them to step into her office. Inside, the principal smiled warmly. "I wanted to talk to you both about yesterday," she said. "I've seen the video and I must say I'm impressed with your composure. You handled the situation calmly, without escalating it, and that's not easy at your age." The girl shifted slightly, feeling a little embarrassed. "We just wanted it to end peacefully," she said softly. "That you did," the principal said. "I also want you to know that we are looking into the bullying that has been happening. No student should be treated the way you've been treated. You've handled it with maturity beyond your years, but it shouldn't have come to this at all." The boy nodded. "Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate it." The principal gave them each a reassuring smile. "I also hope you'll consider sharing your experience with other students. Sometimes when someone handles a difficult situation calmly, it can teach the rest of us how to respond with dignity." The twins left the office quietly. On the way to their next class, they walked together, both thinking about what the principal had said. They didn't see themselves as teachers or examples, they just wanted to be left alone. But maybe there was value in showing others a better way. That afternoon, in history class, their friend whispered to them about the comments she had seen online. "People are calling you guys heroes," she said. "And some of the teachers are talking about inviting you to speak at an assembly. Can you believe it?" The girl smiled softly. "It's weird. We just did what felt right," the boy nodded. "Yeah, we didn't do anything special, but the recognition was starting to spread. Students who had once ignored them were now looking at them with respect. Even some who had sided with Ethan were quiet, unsure of how to react. After school, the twins walked to the gym for their usual martial arts practice. Their father was waiting for them, arms crossed, watching as they approached. "I saw the videos," he said quietly. "You both handled yourselves very well. I'm proud of you." "Thanks, Dad," the girl said softly. The boy added, "We didn't fight, just defended." "That's exactly what I taught you," he said. "Control, patience, and calmness. Always remember, the moment you lose control, you lose everything." For the next hour, they practiced their forms and techniques with precise movements, perfecting balance, control, and timing. Each kick and punch flowed into the next. Their father corrected small details here and there, but mostly watched in silence. It wasn't about showing power. It was about mastery and discipline. That evening, they sat quietly on the front porch, the night air cool around them. The street was quiet and the stars glimmered above. "Do you think they'll leave us alone now?" the girl asked softly. "I don't know," her brother admitted. "They might try something else. But we know how to handle it if they do," she nodded. "Yeah, we're ready." The next morning, the school was abuzz. Students were talking about the calm confidence of the twins. The videos had been shared widely, and many students were curious to see them in person. As they walked through the halls, some students whispered greetings. Others just stared, unsure of how to approach. The twins had never asked for attention, but now it seemed impossible to avoid. During lunch, the friendly girl joined them again. I think people are starting to realize something, she said. They can't push you around. The girl nodded politely. It's not about being scary. We just don't give them what they want. After lunch, the twins returned to class. They noticed that Ethan was no longer openly antagonistic. He sat across the room quietly observing, and his friends were acting more subdued. It seemed as though their calmness had started to change the social dynamics. That afternoon, the principal made an unexpected announcement over the intercom. Students, we have something important to share. Yesterday, some students handled a difficult situation with remarkable calm and control. We believe this deserves recognition, and we'd like to invite them to speak at an upcoming school assembly about handling conflict respectfully and safely. The twins looked at each other, a little surprised. Neither had expected this. After school, as they walked home, the streets seemed different. The usual tension from earlier in the week was gone, replaced by a quiet curiosity from the neighborhood and their classmates. People who had once ignored them were now watching with a new kind of respect. That evening, the twins trained with their father again. Their practice was long and focused, but this time there was a different energy. It wasn't just about defending themselves anymore. It was about understanding their own strength and how to use it wisely. You've handled everything well, their father said. But remember, respect is earned through patience and understanding, not fear. You've shown both. That's why people are noticing. The girl nodded. We just want to keep things peaceful. I know, he said. And that's the right choice. Always remember that strength without control is useless. Strength with control is power, respect, and dignity. Over the next few days, the twins continued to navigate school life with the same calm and careful attention. The bullies who had once tormented them no longer dared approach directly. Students were curious, respectful, and sometimes even friendly. The twins began to feel a sense of belonging they hadn't felt before. One afternoon, while practicing outside near the school track, the friendly girl came running up. Hey, some students are talking about inviting you both to speak at a youth leadership event, she said, out of breath. The boy smiled faintly. We'll think about it, he said. The girl nodded. I think people could really learn something from you, his sister added softly. If it helps them understand how to handle things calmly, maybe it's worth it. By the end of the week, the twins had earned a quiet reputation throughout the school. Students whispered their names with a mix of awe and curiosity. Teachers nodded to them in hallways. Even some of Ethan's friends began to approach them quietly, trying to figure out what made them so different. That night, the twins sat together on their porch again. The stars above were bright and clear. Do you think it will last? The girl asked. I don't know, the boy replied. But we've learned something important. It's not about avoiding challenges, it's about facing them the right way. She nodded, resting her head on his shoulder. I think we're ready for whatever comes next. And somewhere deep inside, they both knew that the next challenge was coming. But for the first time, they felt confident that they could handle it with calm, control, and dignity, just as their father had taught them. The next week started with a new energy at Ridgeview High. Students whispered about the twins everywhere they went. Their calm, controlled response to the bullies had become a story everyone was talking about. Some were curious, some were cautious, and a few even wanted to befriend them. The twins walked to school as usual, quiet but confident, noticing the stares and whispers but not letting them bother their calm. By lunchtime, it was clear that Ethan and his friends had changed their attitude. They weren't laughing or making rude remarks. Instead, they watched from a distance, uncertain, as if trying to figure out how to approach the twins without making themselves look foolish. The boy and his sister sat under their usual tree, their friend joining them again. You guys are kind of famous now, she said softly. Everyone's talking about you. The girl smiled faintly. We didn't do anything special, she said. We just stayed calm. But people are noticing, her brother added. That counts for something, the friendly girl nodded. It counts for a lot. Some students even said they want to learn how to handle situations like you did. After lunch, the twins returned to class. They noticed some of the quieter students staring at them with respect. The atmosphere in the school had shifted. Even some of the teachers seemed more aware, occasionally nodding to them or giving them encouraging smiles. It felt strange, almost like they had entered a different school, even though everything else was the same. That afternoon, during science class, one of Ethan's friends cautiously approached the twins. Hey, sorry about everything before, he said quietly. We didn't mean to. I didn't realize you were. He trailed off, unsure how to finish the sentence. The boy looked at him calmly. It's fine, he said simply. Just try to be better. The friend nodded quickly and walked away, leaving the twins alone again. The girl whispered, Looks like your calmness is spreading. After school, the twins headed home, but they noticed something unusual. A small group of students they didn't recognize approached them on the sidewalk. These students weren't laughing or mocking. Instead, they looked a little nervous. One of them spoke up. We wanted to say that what you did yesterday was really impressive. You didn't hit anyone, but you handled the situation perfectly. The boy nodded politely. Thank you, his sister added softly. We just want everyone to feel safe. That's all. The students exchanged glances, then nodded and left. The twins walked the rest of the way home in silence, feeling a strange mix of relief and pride. They hadn't asked for recognition, but it was nice to see that some people appreciated their way of handling things. That evening, they trained with their father as usual. Their practice was intense but calm, focusing on forms, breathing, and control. Their father watched them carefully, occasionally giving advice or correcting a stance. After a while, he stepped back and said, You both have learned something important. Strength is not just about physical power. It's about control, patience, and knowing the right time to act. You've shown all of that. The girl smiled faintly. We just wanted to end things peacefully. And you did, their father said. Sometimes the quietest actions speak the loudest. Never forget that. The next day at school, a few of the students who had previously been indifferent or even mean started greeting the twins politely. The hallways felt different now. There was less tension, less mocking, and more curiosity. Some students approached them cautiously, asking questions about how they had stayed so calm or about their martial arts training. During lunch, the friendly girl came running up again. You guys are being asked to speak at a student leadership assembly, she said, excitement in her voice. The principal says everyone could learn from how you handled the bullying. The boy and his sister exchanged a glance. We'll think about it, the boy said. She nodded. I think people will listen. They really will. Later that afternoon, they walked past Ethan, who was sitting alone with his friends. His face was neutral, and he didn't say anything as they passed. It was strange to see him so quiet. The girl whispered to her brother, Looks like he's finally realizing something. He nodded. Sometimes people just need to see strength without anger to understand it. That evening, the twins trained one last time before the weekend. Their father guided them through advanced techniques, focusing on precision, balance, and awareness. They practiced silently, each movement flowing into the next. When they finished, their father looked at them proudly. You've done well. You've handled challenges with intelligence and patience. Remember, those lessons will last longer than any physical fight. The weekend passed quietly. The twins spent time helping younger students at the martial arts studio, teaching them basic moves and the importance of control and discipline. They began to see that their own experience could help others, and it felt good to share their knowledge. Monday arrived and the school felt calmer. Students who had previously whispered behind their backs now approached with polite greetings. Even Ethan seemed more thoughtful, though he still didn't speak to them directly. During lunch, the principal called the twins to the office again. I've been thinking about your situation, she said. You've shown remarkable patience and control. I'd like to invite you both to speak at the assembly. Share your experience with other students. Teach them that courage isn't always about fighting. It's about standing firm with dignity. The twins exchanged a glance. We'll do it, the girl said softly. The boy nodded. It might help others, yes. The assembly day arrived quickly. The gym was filled with students, teachers, and staff. Whispers ran through the crowd as the twins walked to the front. They didn't feel nervous, they just stood quietly, their presence commanding attention without saying a word. The boy began. We want to share something important. Sometimes people try to push you, make fun of you, or treat you badly. It happens to everyone at some point. But the way you respond matters more than what they do, his sister continued. We learned that staying calm, controlling your reactions, and not letting anger guide you can change the outcome of any situation. You don't have to fight with fists to be strong. Real strength is in patience, awareness, and understanding. The audience listened quietly, captivated by their words. Some students nodded, Some whispered to their neighbors, and a few even looked a little ashamed for how they had treated others. The boy added, "It's not easy. We were scared and nervous at first, too. But we had to remember who we are and what we've been taught. That's what made the difference," the girl concluded. "We hope you take this lesson with you. Treat people with respect, even if they don't treat you the same way. Control yourself, stay calm, and always choose dignity over anger." The room was silent for a moment, then filled with applause. Students who had once laughed at them now clapped, showing admiration for the twins' courage and wisdom. After the assembly, several students approached them, thanking them for sharing their story. Even some of Ethan's friends came forward, offering apologies or quiet nods of respect. The twins accepted graciously, understanding that sometimes people need time to learn. That evening, they walked home together feeling lighter than they had in weeks. "I think things are finally changing," the girl said softly. "Yeah," her brother replied. "It feels like people are starting to understand." Their father greeted them at the studio. "I saw the assembly," he said quietly. "You both did well. You didn't just defend yourselves, you inspired others. That's true strength." The twins smiled, feeling proud but humble. They knew the bullying might not disappear completely, but the balance had shifted. Respect had been earned not through anger or fighting, but through patience, control, and quiet confidence. Over the following weeks, the school continued to adjust. Ethan and his friends stopped their teasing entirely, choosing instead to keep a safe distance. Other students, influenced by the twins' example, became more mindful of how they treated their peers. The twins had not only defended themselves, they had helped the school grow in understanding and respect. One afternoon, the twins sat under their tree with the friendly girl. "You two have really changed things here," she said. "I think people will remember this for a long time." The boy smiled faintly. "We just tried to do the right thing. And that's all anyone can do," his sister added. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the school grounds, the twins knew their journey wasn't just about defending themselves. It was about teaching others the power of calm, the importance of control, and the strength that comes from dignity. That night, they trained once more with their father. Their movements were precise and smooth, flowing naturally from years of practice. He watched them silently, pride evident in his eyes. "You've handled everything with wisdom," he said finally. "Never forget that your strength lies not in your fists but in your mind and heart." The twins nodded. They understood now that the lessons from martial arts were more than just physical. They were lessons for life: patience, respect, control, and courage.